Hey friend, welcome to Authentic Performance, the podcast. My name is Nat and I'm your host. At Authentic Performance, our mission is to provide education and advocacy for all athletes, developing awareness surrounding identity, purpose, and health, so athletes can live well beyond their sport. This week, we're changing things up a little bit with a special edition talking about controversies and scandals in sports. We are joined by my friend Dylan Knifong, who played football, baseball, and ran track in high school and played college baseball at Dakota College of Bottom. Both of us talk about what we know about some popular sport controversies and discuss our opinions. We would love to hear from you after this episode to learn your thoughts on these topics, or if you have any other scandals you want us to discuss. Maybe Dylan will have to come back and debate some more. Anyways, enjoy this fun conversation about sport controversies with Dylan Knifong. Okay, welcome Dylan to the podcast.
Hey,
To start things off, can you just tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
yeah, my name is Dylan Knifong. I'm from Windsor, Colorado, and I am a senior at Grand Canyon University.
Awesome. And what's your sport involvement?
So in high school, I did football, track, and baseball, and I had the awesome opportunity to play baseball at Dakota College at Botano for 2 years.
Awesome. Well, today is going to be a little different setup. Uh, Not the typical questions, maybe, but I think it'll be fun. We're going to talk about sport controversies. And this was per Dylan's request, so I'm excited to hear all of your input on all these controversial sports topics. So, we're just going to go right into the first ones, starting with some baseball controversies. So, what do you think about the baseball steroid era? Now, I'll give a little background before we dive into it. This was kind of a period of time, I believe it started in kind of like the late 80s, maybe, and into like the 2000s. There's not like a set date because they don't know exactly how long all of this was going on, but there's basically like 90 plus players that were using performance enhancing drugs. And so it kind of led to more home runs, like increased offensive output because they were all using performance enhancing substances. And so then there is Roger Clemens, who was a pitcher, and Barry Bonds, who most people probably have heard of. Both were participating in this, supposedly. Don't know if they actually, whatever. But they were both left out of the Hall of Fame, supposedly because of their involvement. So, what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
I think it's a very interesting time of baseball, because baseball, baseball's been around for it's like one of the oldest sports in America, and it's a very interesting time where, athletes, of course, want to do their best in their certain sport, especially at a professional level, and I think some athletes just have questionable decisions on how they want to become the best. So it definitely leads into a lot of discussions onto whether or not, a lot of these athletes that were on the performance enhancers did break a lot of records that are still held today. But it's the question is, do we still qualify those records being brought, even though it's like technically cheating? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, what do you think? Like with the records, do you think it's fair that those records are kept, or like, because I feel like it's just a very different. It's almost like they're in different categories. Because if you have someone who is playing fairly and not using anything that could potentially enhance their performance, then how can you really compare them to someone who's using something that is known to, you know, make you stronger or faster or whatever it is?
hmm
What is your
So I
thought?
think it's super interesting when it comes to baseball, because this could be biased, but I think baseball is like one of like the hardest sports because like trying to just hit a fastball coming at you at 100 miles an hour with a slim piece of wood is difficult in itself, let alone the different styles of pitches, the ball movement. I think at a level like that, it's super hard to even do. Um, Baseball is a sport where you can fail 70% of the time and still be in the Hall of Fame. So I think the fact that they were even like able to accomplish the records and hit so many home runs and such is impressive by itself. But I think there needs to be a way of acknowledging like they did it, but not legally. So like conversations I've had with fellow players and such is that you can keep the numbers and names up there, but if you put maybe like an asterisk or some kind of little notation by their name to still recognize what they did, but also know that you didn't do it legally.
Yeah. What do you think about some of those players being left out of the Hall of Fame because of their involvement in all of this?
I think I think the Hall of Fame for one in any sport is a very special achievement for a certain athlete, and I feel like most athletes in there um, did so with their own hard work, their own practice styles, their own work ethic, and everything. And the ones who did not use steroids definitely deserve their place there. But the ones that did, I can get behind leaving them out because being a player is also more than just achieving stats and runs. There's also the aspect of just being a good teammate, a good player for your coach, a good, there's a whole different aspect as well. And just putting yourself above everyone else to cheat is not something that should be recognized in a statute like the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's a that's a good answer. What do you think this does to the game of baseball if like I mean they call it like the baseball's steroid era because it's been over a significant period of time where that's been happening and like obviously a lot of people have gotten caught and like there are suspensions or whatever like there are consequences but when you have that many players that are involved like what does that do to the game of baseball in like
I think, once the era first began and as it was kind of coming to its end and stuff, I feel like there's definitely a huge trust issue between fans, players, the league itself. Because a lot of athletes, I feel like, are able to that get around the drug testing and such that did use steroids but never got caught in a sense. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like there's definitely that, but I just feel like the league should probably, lock down on like maybe be like take drug testing like maybe more serious or more often or something to kind of like watch the players. Um, but I feel like in today's ball, 2023, I feel like that's not much of an issue anymore.
yeah. Yeah, I just think like the fact that like during this time there was like so many more like home runs because they're like just taking these performance enhancers that like make it easier for them to physically do like stuff like that, like hitting home runs, like strength wise, like that's a
Mhm.
big thing. Like that completely changes the game in just the like what's happening. Like even like you think about like scores. Like I would imagine and like I'm not a super big baseball fan so I don't like follow it super closely, but I would imagine like even like the scores of games during that time are probably like higher than like they should be, maybe just because like people shouldn't be getting that many home runs. Like it almost maybe makes the game of baseball less exciting because it's just like or maybe it makes it more exciting. I don't know. What do you think?
Mhm. I definitely, well, since you bring it up, I think it's kind of interesting now if we think back to the whole steroid era. What, if we look at some teams that, had players that were involved in the steroid uses and stuff, you could say, like Mark McGuire, for example, he could, had a walk-off home run, wins the game for their team, and now their record will stand indefinitely as, that one win, even though it was off a cheated play. So I definitely think that era is kind of interesting if you go off like wins and losses. But I think ultimately with the scores and runs of the games, um, I think it just kind of boils down to wins and losses because, we could say, the Broncos won the Super Bowl in 2017, but, what's the score? What was the score? I feel like a lot of fans just kind of boil it down to wins and losses,
Mhm.
which definitely could have been, tainted throughout the steroid era.
Yeah, for sure. So with that, like cheating, I mean, kind of mentioned an example, but what about the Houston Astros in 2017 with the World Series stealing signs? Now, again, I'm not a super educated baseball fan, but in doing my own research, seems like maybe there was a camera that was capturing the signs of the other team, and then there was like this whole system, like someone was watching the camera and like texting someone in the dugout, and then they were like making a loud noise or something like that, like with signs. So
Mm,
basically they knew the signs for the other team, and then they end up winning.
mhm.
So what do you think about that whole situation? Like, what do you, especially with that big of a game, like the World Series is a big deal. So,
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. For one, definitely the pitch stealing is a huge advantage in the game of baseball. Um, when I was growing up playing, something that we would pick up on pitchers was, maybe if a kid's going to throw a curveball, you'll notice he kind of digs into his glove a little more so he can get the right grip on the ball. Or if he just comes up and then goes, you kind of have an idea that it's going to be a fastball. But so it's like a huge game changer for sure. And for them to use the resources they did to go out of their way to make sure they stole and understand what was going on is ridiculous, for one. But yeah, I've heard many different ways from cameras to trash banging to, you know, Jose Altuve wearing wires or something under his jersey so he feels like a little buzz. I've heard all kinds of stuff. Um, but, see, that's another thing too is I think that's a great question because, I mean, again, they did end up winning it, but that is a huge, huge advantage, momentum changer for a team. So, again, I feel like there has to be, same thing with the steroids era. There has to be some kind of acknowledgement that this is what happened in history. So besides the game itself, in history, the Houston Astros won. That's what was marked down. This is that we later found out. So I feel like there needs to be something where we acknowledge it in baseball history, but it's hard to just give the pennant to whoever they be. I'm sorry, I can't remember, but
yeah, I
you
don't know
can't just
either.
like a couple years later be like, hey, we feel bad. Here's this because you don't feel like you earned it. You don't, you feel like you got
Yeah.
cheated out of it. So I think, yeah, Houston Astros won it, but it should be acknowledged as a asterisk or something.
Yeah, cuz well you can't just like take it away either, cuz it's like even if you yeah, it's just it's a hard situation cuz it's like obviously cheating is wrong and you shouldn't do it. But you can't like for sure say that they if they weren't cheating that they would have lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and again, I think there should be some consequences of like, hey, you can't do this and just like only be acknowledged as like the winner. Like you said, like there needs to be this acknowledgement of like, okay, this was a cheating situation. But it's like, how do you I mean, do you strip the title like that? It's just hard to even know, too. Which I mean, I think that's also probably why they should have just played fair because now it's like people probably question like, would they have actually won if they hadn't been cheating? But we'll never
Right.
know because you can't go back and do anything.
Mm-hmm. And I know too, like speaking with like past teammates and a lot of other people that follow baseball with me is due to those actions of the Houston Astros, a huge negative public relations has kind of gone out throughout fans of baseball. So now there's been a developed hatred towards the Astros, even if they're not even the same division as you. People just don't like them because they cheated, and I feel like that has a huge effect on the fans as well of just the MLB.
Yeah. Well, and even the players now, because it's like that happened in 2017. So there are players for sure on the team now that weren't there when that happened. Like they didn't participate. And like realistically, I don't know if everyone on the team even knew what was going on. Like I don't know enough to know. And so it's like that's tough too when you have players that even on that team like may have not even really participated or known what was going on, and yet they're lumped in with the same group of people who did cheat. And then even the players now that weren't even on the team then, or even like if you've got coaches or like whatever in the future too, like the there's the stain on the name, but
Hmm.
those people didn't, participate. So that's really tough too, to have that negative like connotation to the name when some of those people didn't even have anything to do with it.
Exactly. Exactly. I totally agree.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about some of the new rules in MLB. You know a little more than I do, but specifically the one that I know has been talked about a lot is the pitch timer. So, what do you think about the new rule with pitching, and any other rules that maybe are kind of talked about right now?
Hmm. So I believe these new rules, for one, of course, is the pitch timer. The pitcher has, and then, so don't quote me on this, but they have roughly between 20, 30 seconds to pitch the ball. The batter has about 8 seconds to get in the batter's box and prepare for the pitch. So it eliminates time wasted in a sense in the game. Baseball's a huge mental game, so a lot of players will step out, adjust their gloves, try to get mentally focused. Um, but kind of like from, I guess you could say, a business standpoint of the MLB, baseball was losing a lot of its viewers because it is a lot of players trying to get mentally focused and ready, and they're losing fans, they're losing focus. So it was kind of a dying sport there for a little bit in a sense. But the new rules, there's of course the pitch clock. If the pitcher doesn't, throw the ball within his given time, it's a ball for the batter. Vice versa, batter's not ready, it's a strike for him, which can get interesting when you have games on the line. If you have a full count and a batter's not ready, that's strikeout, game over because he wasn't ready. So I
Mm-hmm.
think players are definitely adjusting to it, and I think they're doing very well with it. Um, Another rule as well is, well, not a rule, but adjustment, is the bases. They added extra length width to the the actual bases itself, which allow runners that extra little bit to try and get a steal off and try to like slide under a tag or something on a steal. So it allows the runners to be more active on the base pass. Pitchers as well, they're limited to two pickoff moves, I believe. So you're not just like you have a runner on first and the pitcher steps off, throws, steps off, throws, steps off. It just continues to do that. It can make an at bat just prolong and with these new rules, I'm actually a huge fan of them personally because it was able to cut the game of baseball down from a 4 hour game to three. It's taken off like an hour, hour and a half of the game. So it's a lot more fast paced and it's a lot more energetic and exciting. And I feel like for me, I've always loved baseball, but I've been showing them, uh, getting my friends at campus at Grand Canyon University involved with baseball as well. And they will have similar thoughts as well that baseball is more exciting now because of these new rule changes. And from the looks of it, the players are adjusting well. They're doing good. So I think that's also important that the players are comfortable playing under these new conditions. Um, so as long as that's working out well, I think the new rule changes are a good thing for the MLB. Gaining more viewers, players are adjusting, games are more exciting, more fans. So all
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, as someone who played softball in high school, I was always like baseball is so boring compared to softball because it takes a lot of time,
Hmm.
like in those, like just like sitting there like looking at someone on the base. And I was always like, guys, like just like in softball you can't do that. You have to, go back to the base and you can't even leave until it leaves the pitcher's hand. So like that
Hmm.
sped up the game for us. So I personally think it's a great rule. Like I think it's not like you're taking out anything significant necessarily. I mean, maybe there will be adjustments, obviously, like with the whole batter like having to get in the box and like all of that. But I do think, like you said, for viewers, like you're probably gonna get more people that aren't like super fans of baseball, cuz like I think if you're a super fan, like you probably are like whatever, like it's a 4-hour long game, like I love baseball. But if someone's just like not as into it, it makes it harder to want to sit down and watch it for that long. And it's crazy
Hmm.
how much time it's cutting down. Like
Right.
just because it's just even just a few seconds here, a few seconds there, like adds up to a lot. So I think that's just crazy how much it's actually changed, like the time of the game. Okay, moving on to some football stuff. Um, what do you think about some of the scandals with football betting, like specifically NFL players that have gotten suspended because they've gotten caught like betting on games?
Like like they've been betting on themselves, right?
Yeah, I think. Or maybe just if they're involved at all. Like if they're in the NFL, what do you think about sports betting? I mean, obviously there's issues with like betting for or against your team.
Hmm.
But just in general, like people who are not even just football, but like professional athletes being involved in betting in their sport. What do you think about that?
Got you. So let's say like an NFL player, for example. I think, he has every right to bet on like a baseball game or a hockey game. I think that's perfectly fine. He has no involvement at all. Now, it does get tricky when it gets to the NFL because he is associated with the National Football League. So, of course, betting on your own team is definitely shouldn't be allowed. So I think it's just too much of a gray area to be like, well, I'm not participating in the game, so I should be allowed to. I think it should just all boil back down to being associated with the NFL. And like they retire, go for it. If you want to do that, or if leave the team early or pick a different career route, I think, yeah, for sure. But I feel like if you're under contract with the National Football League, it shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't know all the rules because I've never been into sports betting, but um, at the junior college that I went to, I knew a couple men's basketball players that were betting on like NFL or NBA or whatever like games. And it's actually, or at least it was at that time, against the rules of our conference.
Okay.
So because I remember their coach saying, hey guys, like remember this is a rule in the conference or whatever, is that you could not be involved in any kind of sports betting, which I don't really know why that was a rule, or
Hmm.
like because it wasn't like no one was betting on junior college basketball games, like that wasn't the
Yeah.
where the betting was going. It was like NFL or
Right.
MLB or whatever, like it was definitely professional sports. But I think it's interesting that that was against the rules there, which again, like I knew a couple players that were
Hmm.
betting, but I don't know exactly what the reason is for that or what the harm would be, because especially like because they're not involved. But like with the if you're in the NFL, I mean obviously your team. Like
Right.
if you're betting like against your team and you're like you have a terrible game, like obviously that should not be allowed. Like just
Hmm.
throwing the game. Um but yeah, it's just interesting like the rules, which I think like college athletes have to be really careful with a lot of those kind of rules because you don't know. Like I know there's a lot of like NCAA rules, even with like supplements. Like there's a lot of supplements that are like banned by the NCAA that like you wouldn't even necessarily like think of. Like and like do they get tested super often, and like is it even doing anything to enhance your performance? I have no idea, but I know there are a lot of rules that like people wouldn't necessarily know about if you weren't like in tune with what like the NCAA
Right.
is doing.
Yeah, I definitely think that, being associated with a sports team in of itself, whether that's the NJCAA, the JUCO Association, NCAA, NFL, um, I feel like there's a kind of a self accountability to kind of understand what you can and cannot do. as an athlete
Mhm.
because I mean, if you make one slip up, like let's say you get caught gambling on sports and you can just say, "Well, I didn't know," even though it's in the rules of the NCAA or it was even in your own NIL, the letter of intent to sign or whatever. Um, it's not going to fly, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it just in a lot of different realms, like there may be rules that you like don't really understand or don't really agree with, but I think it's hard for any kind of sports entity to not honor those rules because again, like whether you agree with it or not, like it's you have to be fair in some way because otherwise you could have like you would just have exceptions coming up all the time and then
Right.
those rules don't even matter anymore. It's like why even have the rules if you're just going to like bend them to fit, what you want to do and stuff.
Hmm. Yep.
Okay, I know that you know a lot more about this than I do. So I'll give you the go ahead on this. Penalties in football, like the difference
Right.
between like NCAA and NFL and kind of what is going on right now with that. So if you want to explain a little more about, because I'm not super familiar.
Yeah, for sure. So this could just be personal opinion, but there's definitely been, with college football, there was, don't know how recent it was, but they did make it a new rule where targeting is a no exception rule. So if a player is caught targeting, leading head on with a hit, they are immediately removed from the football game. And that is kind of questionable, I think, because in football, it's a very physical game. I mean, a lot of things happen, a lot of bodies flying around, people are hitting each other. And, sometimes targeting is, very obvious and malicious. And, but there's just some plays where, an athlete is trying to make a strong play, make a stop or something. Helmets, you know, they kind of knock a little bit and a referee can just throw them out of the game. I've seen, at the national championship. I've seen Clemson players get thrown out as seniors. A senior is just working hard for his team. Questionable call, and there's just no exception. And that's the kid's football career. It's just gone like that. So I think it's definitely an interesting. I don't know how to fix it. I just think maybe you know, targeting is something serious. A lot of head injuries can be come from it. But I feel like some refs are very quick to just throw kids out of games. And with the NFL, they've definitely um, been more strict on physical plays as well. There's a lot more roughing the passer plays where a defensive player will maybe hit the quarterback a little too hard or something. Again, totally understandable. Um, but there's some just game-changing plays that will happen. And you can, look back at, this play wasn't called, this play was called, and just a lot of factors that change the game of football when ultimately it's a mean sport. You got guys that are just monsters out there tearing each other up for the ball, for the win and stuff. And I understand too, you have to protect the players. CTE is a very serious, kind of brain injury that's been occurring in football players. And, you know, the thing too is an athlete might, tear his ACL is another common, and that's something they're going to take with them after their career, and so is CTE. It's another injury that kind of comes along with the game. And I feel like a lot of these professional athletes, understand the risk and are willing to do it as long like I'm saying, the players they understand it's a mean sport. They're willing to get hurt. They're willing to put their body on the line for their teammates. Um, so I do think in a sense we need to protect them, but there is definitely it's a rough sport. So I definitely think the players understand that as well.
Yeah. It's a hard line to draw too because like of the nature of the sport too. It's like how do you really know like you're saying like some things may just be questionable and like then like if there's no exceptions like those players get kicked out of the game for like basically this, so it's like they're on the same level as like someone who maybe like legitimately like tried to hurt someone. Like
Hmm.
so that's hard. Like obviously if it was an intentional thing and they're trying to harm someone, like you want to protect them, but
Absolutely.
it's like how do you even define that, like that line? Because again, like it is part of the nature of football.
Yeah. You know, I don't have a clear answer for it. I think you have a great point just saying that it is the gray area, Sometimes it's hard to pick if someone's trying to knock someone's head off or if they're just trying to make a play for their teammates. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I guess there's no answer yet, but maybe someday we'll figure it out. um, what are your thoughts? This is kind of an older one, and I actually, when I was talking to my brother, who obviously is a football fan, uh,
mhm,
this was the first when I said we were going to talk about controversies today. This was the first one that he threw out there. So I thought I would love to hear
okay.
your opinions on the deflate gate with the Patriots
Yeah.
supposedly deflating the football during, it was during the Super Bowl, correct? Or like
Yep.
they looked at it, or they like investigated a different game too or something, like that's how they got some information.
Hmm.
But again, here's another really big game and supposedly there's cheating. However, it's a little different than the baseball ceiling signs, I would say.
Hmm.
What do you think about that whole situation?
So I think it's interesting. So I'm not too knowledgeable on what happened either. Um, but yeah, the New England Patriots was rumored to have deflated the football during their game, which allows a receiver to catch the ball a lot easier, of course. And I think there might have been like a picture showing, maybe like an indent on the football when a player was catching, or maybe someone on the sideline had reported it as well. Um, yeah, I think, is just an organization that, put themselves over anyone else. They didn't respect the rules of football, didn't respect the NFL, didn't respect their opponents, and did what they could to win. Because so like basically, uh, back when I was playing high school football, I think it's the same thing. The team has their own ball, so they have their own ball for the quarterback to use, and so the Patriots have their own ball that they supply on the field, vice versa for their opponents. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't think it's right, but it's the same thing you could say with the Houston Astros. They used a way of cheating to play better against their opponents. So I mean, again, they still completed passes. Tom Brady didn't throw an interception. They still scored touchdowns. They still made blocks. So, they still won, just not legally. And I feel like both aspects should be recognized.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's another tough one because it's like again, how much of an impact did it have? Like we really can't know. Like it's tough. But yeah, I something that I did read on that said that Tom Brady specifically like he liked it more deflated or something, like that
Right.
was better. And I'm like, well, if you like it, then let's do it. Like let's just make it to your preferences. Um
Mhm.
but yeah, it's just like again, breaking rules like that. I mean, I guess that's the majority of these things are like scandals or controversies. Like most of it has to do with breaking some kind of rule, which I think is just a good lesson of like just win with integrity. Like
Oh yeah.
just like prove to them that you don't have to cheat to win. Cause like again, anyone now can say, oh well the Patriots like the only reason they won is because they deflated the football. Do you really want people to think of your win like that? Like,
Right.
I mean, of course, maybe they didn't think they were going to get caught and that people would just, say that they won. But like, if you do get caught, it takes away so much of the like validity of what you actually did. Because like,
Oh yeah.
again, they I mean, I don't know how good they were that year or whatever. I don't know what the game was even like. I probably watched it, don't remember it. But like they probably could have won. without
Yeah,
it. Like, or they should have at least tried, obviously. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy that these rules, like, it, yeah, it becomes a big deal, even
mhm,
though we don't know how much of an impact it actually had. But you have to just go with like it's cheating, and they didn't win
mhm.
fairly, and that's it is what it is.
Exactly. And I think it's pretty ridiculous on the athletes and organizations' parts, because, you know, as a kid, I feel like being competitive, I feel like is a great thing. Everyone wants to strive to do their best. They want to win. Love it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I feel like they taught us as kids is it's just a game. You know, it's literally it just boils back down. It's football. I mean, these guys they're getting paid win or lose. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so to have that, just no respect for the game, the opponent, the league, and everything. I feel like it puts a bad look on the organization and for the fans as well. It's just a game, and I think being competitive is great, but just enjoy the game and play it fairly.
Yeah, and especially at that level too, it's like, okay, great, like you won the Super Bowl, and I get it. Like we're all super competitive, and we want to be at the highest, the biggest stage, the highest level, whatever. But like these guys are getting paid ridiculous amounts of
Oh
money
yeah.
to play football. And like that's an opportunity that a lot of people would kill for. Like even looking at like college athletics, like that's a place that most people don't get to be. So like I think that's probably why I get so irritated with people like taking advantage of that opportunity, or like just yeah, taking it for granted, like, and using steroids or like getting involved in these scandals, because it's like you're already getting paid like a ridiculous amount of money just to do what you love, like to get to play football. The least you can do is play the game the way it's supposed to be played. Like
Yeah, right.
that seems like just a simple thing, but maybe not. Maybe it's more complicated than that. I don't know.
Maybe.
Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about college, specifically NIL deals. So, um, do you think? I mean, I know this is a pretty hot topic, and it's also fairly new. So there's not like there's still information coming out. Like people don't really know exactly how to navigate it yet. But with NIL, which for anyone who doesn't know is name, image, and likeness, basically athletes at the college level are able to make money off of themselves as an athlete, like their name. And if they're playing for a school, like they can get endorsements and sponsorships and all of that. So, what are your thoughts on NIL? Like, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Where do you think it's going to go?
I don't really see it as a bad thing. Um, I feel like if anything, it's also more publicity for the college itself for a certain player. So I feel like the college can very benefit from it. I feel like the players themselves, but again, like you said, just to get to a college level a huge is a huge like check mark or a checkpoint for an athlete or a milestone. It's a huge milestone for a certain athlete to get to the college level. So to be able to work your way to, a top college, like for example, I was at Shields the other day and I saw a Shadur Sanders jersey, and you know, his dad being Deion Sanders, it's a little free publicity. But anywho, the kid still worked hard to make it to a big university like Colorado University, the CU Buffs, and worked his way to be starting quarterback. And I feel like that hard work should be recognized in a way instead of let's say you sell a LSU jersey, you know, and it just has number 10 on it. Well, the player who's wearing number 10, you might not know who that is. And I feel like that athlete deserves more recognition for his hard work to even get to LSU. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see this really being a bad thing. I feel like it's good publicity for the college, and I feel like it's rewarding players for working hard and, encouraging them to push harder for the next step.
Yeah. I do think it's an interesting kind of thing to navigate because it's so new still, and like there's so many different levels, kind of like you've got people that are playing division 1 at like a school that may not be super popular, and they could get like some small deals, here and there that like will help out or whatever. But then you've got people that are making like millions of dollars from brand deals and endorsements and everything. And I just think it's an interesting thing. And I know social media, like huge part of our world now. I'm just so curious to see what it'll look like in a couple of years. And like, I mean, the only thing I worry about a little bit is that it may change the actual games. Like it's almost like a professional realm now, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I have no idea what this is going to turn into, which I've heard some people say, like you're basically at most of those like high level college teams, like you're basically doing what professional athletes are doing without getting paid. So like there is that piece of it. But then also like a lot of those people are getting their entire school paid for. Like if you're on a full tuition
Mm.
scholarship, like to me that does mean you're getting paid. Like it may not be in just cash, but like you are getting a free education. So like I think that's kind of a hard argument of like, oh, like we should be getting paid more when it's like, well, this is the college level, it's not pro. Um but and you're also getting this scholarship, but again, like a lot of that is outside stuff too. Like it's like working with brands and like having different companies that maybe are involved in athletics or have products or whatever, and like being kind of the face for that, which I think it just kind of adds a whole new layer to like college athletics. Like some of these people are like, I don't know, they're like models or like but like doing these things that like maybe you would see more in like the professional world. So I'm interested to see like just how it kind of adapts and evolves because it is so new still, and like there's so many different things. Like even like my brother, like his team has like an NIL thing, like they kind of set it, but the like those players are not getting deals that are like millions of dollars, but there are other schools that's their reality. So I think it's an interesting situation, and I'm curious to see how it'll shake out.
Yeah, I mean, totally. I have no idea what the future intentions are. I think you do bring up a great point with the scholarship as well. The college itself paying these athletes through scholarship, of course. Um, but it is interesting though too, because like college football is televised like nationwide. So a lot of people will sit down on a Saturday night to watch college football, and um, like you say too, the outside sources with the fans contributing, and maybe like a Nike sponsorship or something for a certain athlete, does play a huge effect. Um, so let's say we take a step back. Let's take the scholarship aspect out of the picture. There are, so you got athletes at the age of, college athletes who are, between 18 and 22. And then what if we also put into the factor of like actors, actresses, musicians that are all kind of breaking out when they're 17, 18 years old and starting to make contracts and stuff. Um, I feel like could be an interesting topic just because, the scholarship side of an athlete is huge. I mean, they do get their school paid for, which is a huge, debt for a lot of people. But, at their age range, making the money due to their hard work and the sponsorships, like you said, the outside sources, you could say is similar to a young musician, a young comedian, even that's starting to get sponsorships and fans as well. Just, I feel like the fact that the scholarship is added as well is definitely kind of where the line is like, should you be getting this much or not?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it's just a hard thing to navigate because I think there are some really talented athletes at at big schools that may not get deals as frequently as some others that may just have a little bit more like of a following, whether that be for like, like maybe they have family members that are well known, or like they're just really into like the social media game. Like I think there's a lot of different factors for like which athletes are getting those deals, which I don't really know. Like a lot of it could be just luck of the draw kind of thing, but I mean even just looking at, like, I think of like UConn women's basketball. I love their team. They've been very successful. You don't hear about these huge, I mean, I think they've got players that have got deals in different, areas. But you may not hear about one of those players making several $1 million, and then you like there were the twins from Miami that were just like blowing up everything like with those huge NIL deals. And it just makes me question a little bit like why were those athletes getting all of those deals as opposed to this other team who is more successful? Like if we're talking about like these players are working really hard to get these deals, and like I do think, I mean obviously if they're at the level where those NIL deals are even coming in, then they've put in a lot of hard work. But I just wonder why some teams more than others, or why some athletes more than others, cuz like I know those girls from Miami, like that I'm not even super like involved in like the whole NIL discussion, but like they were getting crazy amounts of deals. And you look at like the NCAA, like the March Madness the last couple of years, and I'm like, where's Miami? Like I
Yeah.
don't even know anyone else on that team because they weren't at the top. So that's where I'm like, how are these deals going to be decided? Like again, it's like brands that are making these decisions, and it's like, well, who's going to get picked to be, the face of these brands? Like I don't know. How are they even deciding that? Who knows? Like so then that's where I'm like, if we're talking hard work and like we want to be rewarding people for hard work, then why aren't we seeing these like huge deals being signed to like the national champions? Like LSU, granted, this last year, like they're one of their top players. She has made a lot of money in NIL deals, and they are at the top. However, there's a lot of other teams that have been really successful in the past years, specifically on the women's side, because I don't know much about the men's. And so I just wonder where that kind of goes from here, and also how that impacts professional sports, because it's like I know some of these players have decided to stay in college longer and not go, especially like women WNBA. You don't make a lot of money in the WNBA as opposed to what some of these people are bringing in for NIL deals. Like those girls from Miami, they wanted to stay in college, like for sure, because they're making more as a college athlete than they would be in the WNBA, which might be a good thing. Like it might keep those players in college, finish up their degree,
Mhm.
and because they're going to make more money doing that than going on. But I wouldn't say that the same would necessarily be true for the men, because that's a whole different realm. They're making a lot more money in the NBA and MLB and all of that stuff, because that's just the revenue is greater there. So I think it's a very
Right.
interesting thing, and just navigating it because it's so new too is going to be tough. um, Another thing that I'm curious of, I know of a baseball player. I don't know him personally, but like friend of a friend of a friend or whatever know of him. Straight out of high school, got drafted, and significant signing bonus. Like he's making a decent amount of money, and he's 18. So,
Right.
what do you think about that? Because I think that's a very interesting situation on a lot of different in a lot of different ways, because I'm sure you probably have some experience too with like kind of the culture of baseball and how that might be with having like, I don't know, 24, 25-year olds playing with an 18-year old who's maybe making more money than them. Like, what do you think about that?
I think that's a great question. I think that's super interesting. What I do know is the MLB isn't like the only, you know, professional league to do that. I know basketball, and then you probably you probably know this better than I do, but basketball, I'm pretty sure, with Kobe and LeBron, were drafted straight out of high school as well. Um, but now the rules have changed, so they are at least required 2 years of college.
Something like that. There, I know there is a requirement.
Okay, so it's interesting with baseball, um, because I feel like baseball, you have like the starting roster, the starting team, but then you also have the minor leagues where you got, A, double A,
Hmm.
triple A. And I feel like, a kid of his age getting that kind of money, that's I think up to the league itself and the coaches to discriminate, like to decide if that's, good or bad. But I feel like for a kid his age going into the league, I mean, they're gonna take time to um, he's going to take time to mature. He's not just going to be thrown into the starting roster day one. I feel like he's
Yeah.
going to get his chances to mature at the game, get adjusted and everything in the minor leagues, and coaches will decide if he's able to move up, bring him down. They'll kind of vary his own performance. But I feel like if you're let's say you're 24 years old and this 18-year-old comes up, he's getting paid more than you. I feel like the coaches have a responsibility to have that teammate, like a family oriented kind of mentality where it's like, I feel like that's something the coaches are gonna have to watch because, people can easily get upset about that for sure.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm not too sure how they should go about it. Um, it's hard to tell because, coaches or the league itself will decide the signing bonus,
Hmm.
depending on how bad they want the kid for sure. Um, So I think if they're willing to put that kind of money into a kid, they have to understand that there are some other consequences that'll kind of happen within the team,
Hmm.
and just making sure that they stay, as a team working together instead of like allowing that to break them apart.
Yeah. Well, and I think the only thing that I personally worry about as like someone studying sports psychology is those kind of athletes going to that level so fast and not having an education or a degree. Like that's not to say like obviously like if you're going to the major leagues and you're making that much money, like you have the capability most likely to go back to college after you're done, but like there's just a big issue with like athletes even at like the college level who are retiring and don't know what to do with themselves, and that's with a college degree. So if again, you're 18, 19, however long he's playing, or not even just this situation but just in general, if you finish out and now like even if it's an injury or like anything crazy, like what do you do from there? Like you are uneducated, or not uneducated, but don't have a college degree,
Yeah.
because you went straight there. And like who are you outside of your sport? Like if you go at that age, I just think it could be a maturity thing will be hard. And then also just like the college thing, like for a lot of athletes, college and kind of figuring out what you want to do with your education or like career and stuff, it can be something that gives you purpose and identity outside of your sport whenever you have to be done with it. But if you don't have that, I just worry that maybe it'll be a little tougher to transition out, which maybe not. Maybe there are great resources. I hope there are great resources. But I think that's an interesting avenue to go down as well.
hmm Yeah, I do think it's interesting as well. I mean, I'm not, not too sure, but I think the MLB should kind of do something similar to the NBA and, you know, almost, not force them, but at least say like, hey, you need 2 years of college because the first 2 years of college, I think whether you're a student or a student athlete, are huge in your development of maturity
Mhm.
and just kind of a sense of belonging or something. And I feel like it gives a student athlete the ability to, you know, hey, I do want to continue my career in college and see where it goes, or maybe 2 years are your 2 years are there and you're willing to go. I think it's very situational on the athlete, but
Mhm.
to just to like offer a kid like that at such a young age, and what 18-year-old isn't gonna sign a contract to play for the MLB, you
Yeah.
know? So I feel like the MLB shouldn't have to put that kind of pressure on kids like, kids at the senior
Mhm.
level. Because I feel like there is definitely a gap of, like we were talking about, maturity and sports psychology and such that, are huge your first two levels of college. Um, so, I'm not too sure. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I mean, that's kind of my thoughts. I don't see what's wrong.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna wrap this thing up. Even though this was a different kind of format as the typical podcast, we're still gonna end with the same question that everyone gets to answer on this podcast, and that is, Dylan, what does it look like for you to live authentically? Okay.
Okay, so my idea of living authentically, um, I think sprouted from my parents. I feel like I was very fortunate enough to live in a strong Christian household, so a lot of our, you know, beliefs on how to live is directed through the Bible. So for me, at least, I feel like a lot of what God says in Scripture, I feel like has a lot of good lessons that we can take into our everyday lives. And I feel like doing things as well that kind of, just make you happy, whether it's something like taking a road trip or simply just getting ice cream down the street or watching your favorite show. I feel like, I feel like there's a lot of judgment and drama in the world. Of course, a lot of scandals, a lot of lies, and all kinds of stuff like that. But I feel like if you live true to yourself and for God, um, I feel like is a great way to live authentically.
That was a great answer. Well, Dylan, thank you for doing this. I think this was so fun. I mean, we
That's a
could
lot of
probably go on forever about all of these topics, but
right.
I think
Well, thank
it's
you for having me for one.
yeah, of course. I think it's fun to change things up a little bit, and I mean, obviously all of everything that we talked about is our opinion, and that is not to say that that is the only correct opinion or that other, thoughts could not be brought up, but I'm sure both of us, anyone listening, would love to hear your thoughts. So if you have a different view or you agree, let us know and maybe we'll do a part 2. Maybe Dylan will be back. Who knows?
Right, maybe.
But anyways, thank you for doing this. So awesome to have you and just grateful for our friendship. Yeah, thanks for doing it.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We would love to hear what you found valuable in this episode. So please DM us on Instagram at Authentic Performance or leave a review. They're super, super helpful for us. We're so thankful that you're on this journey with us and want to invite you to be a part of the Authentic Performance fam. You can check out more of how we're supporting athletes at theauthenticperformance.com. Also, let us know what you want to hear on the podcast next or who you want to hear. We appreciate your feedback and want to give you the best possible resources and support. In the meantime, think about how you can live authentically. See you next time.